When I was 13, my father took me to Faro Stadium for the first time to watch Dynamos play. I don't think I remember who Dynamos was playing against, but what I do remember is what it felt like to spend those few hours with my father. Because of the nature of his work, my father rarely had time to hang out with his children, and I had always craved a much closer relationship with him. And that afternoon gave me exactly that. There he was, laughing with absolute strangers, cussing out at the referee, teaching me how to sing vulgar war cries. It was as if a mask had fallen off. I just recently turned 31, which means it's been 18 years since that afternoon, and yet it remains one of my most cherished memories, one that I'll probably carry till my last breath. That is the undeniable power and beauty of sport. Its inexplicable ability to connect absolute strangers and strengthen bonds between kin. It's a language that can't be taught. You just find yourself speaking it. As long as you are present in the moment, you will feel something. That, Kirsty Coventry, is what you have taken away from Zimbabweans. You have denied young boys and girls the opportunity to connect with their parents and guardians on a level that they can't get through anything. You've denied Zimbabweans the opportunity to unite and rally together beyond petty political and tribal tensions. How did we get to the point where our national football team is playing its home fixtures on foreign land? What happened to Zimbabwe Tennis? Was the black family the only talent we had? Why does supporting the Chevrons feel like a pyramid scheme? No matter how good it gets, you know disappointment is just around the corner. How come our netball team always has to beg for support, and yet they are some of our most consistent performers? How did things get so bad? But more importantly, is it all Kirsty Coventry's fault? Ladies and gentlemen, war vets and unfocused youth, welcome to another episode of Properganda with Kandoro. Banyana, South Africa's women's football team just beat DRC to bring them closer to qualifying for the Olympics. Their men's and women's hockey team also beat Nigeria, strengthening their Olympic bids. The South African cricket team is currently thrashing teams black and blue at the Cricket World Cup. Their most recent victim being New Zealand, who they beat by 190 runs. Minister, there is no way you can watch this video and not feel something move within you. That's Siya Kolisi lifting the Rugby World Cup for the second consecutive time this past weekend. The only thing that separates us in this country of sporting excellence is a river, not a lake, a river. As a matter of fact, there are many people who have crossed that same river who are willing to argue that, it doesn't really separate us like that. So how is it that South Africa is breaking world rugby records? And yet back home, the only thing that comes close to filling up our national stadium is a rally. We used to produce world-class talent. Peter Ndlovu was the first African football player in the English Premier League. In 1994, Nick Price was the #1 golfer in the world. In 1998, Elliot Mjaji, a member of the national athletic team, suffered a catastrophic electrical accident. His arm had to be amputated, and he was in a coma for 2 months. But that didn't stop him from winning the first gold medal for Zimbabwe at the 2000 Summer Paralympics in Sydney. Stephen Mujingi used to get bored and just go win the Comrades Marathon. What happened? In 2005, Cara Blake became the joint #1 player in the world at doubles tennis. #1 in the world. She held that sport for 163 weeks, ultimately spending an incredible 569 weeks in the top 10. She won 60 career doubles titles and collected at least $7 million in prize money during her career. $7 million USD, not. Kevin Ulliott is the closest we've had to Cara. He also had success in the men's doubles, winning 34 titles during his career, including 2 Grand Slams and the 2005 Australian Open with Cara's brother, Wayne Black. Currently, the Locke brothers, Benjamin and Courtney, are on their own quest to surpass the achievements set by Byron and Wayne Black. Is it just me, or is there a suspicious common denominator here? Aside from Genius Chidzikwe and Gwinyai Chingoka, our tennis has and continues to be dominated by the offspring of white commercial farmers. The same commercial farmers we drove away in the name of sovereignty. Is there something in the water at these commercial farms that allows you to succeed at tennis? Or is the cost of participation too high that only those with deep pockets like commercial farmers can participate? In 2019, the Zimbabwe Netball team made a strong debut at the Netball World Cup in Liverpool. I didn't even know that we had a national netball team, let alone one that had qualified for the World Cup and go on to do well. One would have been forgiven for thinking, this is the start of great things for Zimbabwe netball, but no. The Gems qualified for the 2023 World Cup, and much like the 2019 World Cup, they had to bring out their begging bowl. I know there is people looking at me saying, calm down, it's just netball. Show me another Zimbabwean national team that is qualifying to play at the World Cup. Any World Cup. What I don't understand is when a national team qualifies for a tournament, they don't qualify in secret. Everyone, especially their administrators, are well aware. And yet somehow, everyone retreats to their own corner until a month before the intended travel dates. And then they start to panic. There was a boxing sensation who went by the name Alfonso Renyika, nicknamed Mosquito. I hope this is not a malaria-related nickname because that's just... In 1998, Renyika beat Powe to take the Commonwealth Flyweight title for Zimbabwe. No one really knows where he is right now, but I can tell you that there is not a single boxing gym or training facility that carries his name. In 2013, Zimbabwe's most decorated fighter, Charles Manyuchi, had to relocate to Lusaka to fight under Oriental Quarries boxing promotions. This is a decision that he came to after he kept losing boxing opportunities due to the state of affairs in Zimbabwe. Manyuchi retired earlier this year with a decorated career, which could have easily been more decorated had the powers that be not resorted to just being the powers that be in name only. At the 1999 Cricket World Cup, our Chevrons came 5th in the Super Sixes. In 2001, Andy Flower was ranked the best batsman in the world, number 1. But in 2003, Henry Olonga sang "My Zimbabwe," and nothing was the same. Even Namibia and Afghanistan beat us at cricket now. But despite all the scandals and corruption, Zim cricket has consistently churned out international superstars. From the Flowers, the Taibus, the Strangs, the Masakadzas, the Strix, and now the Razas of the world. A lot of the highs that we have experienced as a nation in the last 3 years have been proudly brought to you by the Chevrons and the Castle Corner. Imagine what they could achieve with a proper structure in place. Harare Sports Club only got floodlights earlier this year. Zimbabweans love football. This entire season of Properganda could have focused solely on Zimbabwean football. That's how much there is to say and dissect about Zimbabwean football. We're a footballing nation at heart. That's a fact. But there's nothing happening in Zimbabwean football right now that serves as evidence to that fact. Under Minister Coventry, Zimbabwean football has felt like a race to the bottom. In 2022, we were suspended by FIFA for alleged government interference in ZIFA, and we couldn't play any international fixtures. This ban came at a time when players such as Munatsi, Kadewere and Nakamba were making waves at the international clubs. This cost them a chance to show their form in national colors. Even though the ban has been lifted, the national team will have to play all their World Cup qualifying matches in Kigali. Why? Because none of our stadiums meet international standards. But it's not just the national team that's in trouble. Our domestic league is in disarray. In June of this year, the National Sports Stadium had to close for renovations, which meant that the 8 teams which used it as a home ground had to look for suitable alternatives. That is how Dynamos ended up playing their home fixtures at Barber Fields, a stadium that is 440 kilometers away and traditionally the home of Highlanders. Just in case I haven't painted this picture well, just imagine Manchester United playing at Anfield, the home of Liverpool. The National Sports Stadium is the National Sports Stadium for a reason. Only matches of national significance are meant to be played there. So who is responsible for allowing 8 local teams to play their football there? Did that person not foresee that playing 4 games a week in the same stadium, let alone the national stadium, would have dire consequences? What are the days when local football was electrifying? The days of Francis Chandida, Maxwell Marinos, Evans Gwekwerere, Leo Krauzhone, Norman Maroto, Sifas Chimedza, James Matola. What do you guys know about Chapungu United, Lancashire Steel, Efu Flats, Zimbabwe Saints, Squatter? The days when we would debate who deserved to be Soccer Star of the Year during break time at school because that's how invested we were. All this is way before social media was a thing. Shouldn't it be easier to make local football exciting now than it was back then when Dr. Zoba and Charles Mabiga were the only 2 people we got our sports news from? Find me a child who can name the starting 11 of whichever local team they claim to be a fan of. It can't. This is the part in the episode where I share solutions and suggestions, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you. It has recently come to my attention that it's not my job to come up with solutions to these problems. Wouldn't it be incredibly arrogant of me to assume that the many people that are employed at the Ministry of Sport don't know how to solve these problems? Why should I have to tell you about the need for infrastructural support for all sporting disciplines starting at grassroots level? Why do I have to explain that if you do that, not only do you widen the talent pool, but you also raise the interest level of some of these sports like rugby or cricket? Is there really a need for me or anyone to tell you that maybe it's time that sports is treated like a business? That sports industry should be allowed to share the same ecosystems as the entertainment industry if it is to be exciting again? Why should I have to tell you that if you were to figure out the problems in sport, you also figure out the issue of morale in the country? The same problem that you've been trying to jumpstart by throwing money in. It's not like you're going to listen anyway. Hi, Minister Mawetera. I just wanted to let you know that we know and we want better. You can figure out the how. I know you're going to counter by saying some of these problems predate your tenure as Minister of Sport. And that's true. But what's also true is that you don't seem to be doing anything about it. We used to be ahead of the curve when it came to some of these sporting disciplines. Our women's football team had everyone talking in the early 2000s. Queen G15, Nomsa Boys Moyo, Rosemary Mugadza. What happened? I know you know what I'm talking about, Minister, because I know you remember when we all came together to cheer for you at the Olympics. We didn't care about swimming. You made us care about swimming. We sang war cries in your name. If I close my eyes, I can still hear the music from 2004 when the Warriors first qualified for AFCON. Despite the economic hardships, there was hope. The country believed. When all is said and done, do you want to be remembered as the minister who could have done more but ended up being outdone by Walter Magaya? I guess we have to wait and see. This has been another episode of Properganda with Kandoro. I'll catch you guys in the next one.